All right, so today we're going to do something a little different. We're going on a deep dive into Russian real estate. Yeah, you heard that right. But we're going beyond the usual market trends and stuff.
Oh, interesting. How so?
Well, we're actually going virtual house hunting using a YouTube video as our guide.
Oh, wow. A virtual house hunt. What video is this?
It's called How Much Do Houses Cost in Russia? Can You Afford It? It's from the Wild Siberia channel. I stumbled across it the other day and I was hooked.
That sounds intriguing. I'm curious to see what we discover.
Me too. The host of the video is using a Russian real estate website, kind of like their version of Zillow.
Okay, I'm picturing it. What kinds of properties are we talking about here?
We'll get into that, but what I thought was cool is that he's really focusing on affordability. You know, what you can actually get for your money in different parts of Russia.
That's a refreshing perspective. So often we just hear about the luxury market or the major cities.
Exactly. And he even touches on the legal side of things, like if foreigners can buy property in Russia.
Oh, that's a great point. We definitely need to explore that further.
We will, don't worry. We'll have a whole episode dedicated to the legal aspects later on. But for now, let's start our virtual house hunt. Ready to see some Russian real estate?
Let's do it.
All right, so the first thing that blew my mind was this. The video features 3 houses, all under $35,000 US.
Wow, under $35,000. Okay, you have my attention. Where are these hidden gems located?
Okay, so house number 1 is a real bargain at just $3,200.
$3,200 for a house? That's less than some people pay for rent in a month.
It is, right. It's a 645 square foot fixer-upper, but it sits on almost a full acre of land.
Wow, almost a full acre. You could do a lot with that. Where is this property located?
It's between Nizhny Novgorod and Kazan, right on the Volga River. I looked it up and it seems like a beautiful area.
That sounds pretty idyllic. Being on the Volga River, you'd have access to nature and maybe even some fishing spots.
Exactly. And think about the peace and quiet. You could create your own little world out there.
It's definitely appealing for someone who wants to escape the hustle and bustle of city life.
Okay, so house number 2 is even more surprising. It's smaller, but much more modern, built in 2015. It has a well-maintained yard, a quarter-acre plot of land, and it's also near the Volga River.
Hold on, a modern house built in 2015 near the Volga River for how much?
All for just $3,583.
Seriously, that's unbelievable. What's the catch? There has to be a catch.
As far as I can tell, there's no catch. It just seems like incredible value for the price. It's a smaller house, but if you're looking for something move-in ready and don't need a ton of space, it's a steal.
This is making me rethink my real estate choices. It seems like you get so much more for your money in Russia.
All right, ready for house number 3.
I'm on the edge of my seat.
This one is larger, 11,184 square feet, sits on a half-acre plot of land, and is located near Voronezh.
Voronezh, where's that?
It's south of Moscow, and it's actually a fast-growing city. And get this, it even comes with a classic red picket fence.
Oh, I love a good picket fence. How much are they asking for this charming abode?
All for $33,632.
That's still incredibly affordable, especially for that much space and a picket fence. These prices are making my head spin.
Right, I know. It's making me wonder what's driving these incredibly low prices. Do you have any insights? Is it just the location?
Location definitely plays a huge role. Land is more plentiful in these more rural areas, which naturally drives down prices. But we also have to consider the condition of these properties. Some might need significant renovations, and that could be a deterrent for some buyers.
That's a good point. It's not just about the sticker price. You have to factor in potential renovation costs.
And then there's the question of infrastructure. Living in a remote village might mean longer commutes, limited access to healthcare, maybe even slower internet. These are all things to consider.
You're right. You're trading those conveniences for affordability and that peaceful rural lifestyle. It's not for everyone, but it's definitely appealing to some.
Absolutely. It's all about finding the right fit for your lifestyle and priorities.
Okay, so we've explored the super affordable end of the spectrum. But are you ready to step it up a notch?
Let's do it. I'm curious to see what happens when we increase the budget.
All right, get ready, because we're moving into the $100,000 to $200,000 price range.
Woo, now we're talking. What kind of properties do we get for that kind of money?
Prepare to be amazed.
Yeah.
The jump in what you get is pretty incredible.
I bet. I'm guessing location starts to play an even bigger role as we move up in price.
You're absolutely right. We're now looking at properties in more desirable areas, maybe closer to cities or popular tourist destinations.
Okay, I'm already intrigued. Give me the details. What's the first property in this price range?
First up, we have a stunning house near Irkutsk. Ever heard of it?
Irkutsk. It rings a bell. Isn't that in Siberia?
It is. It's often called the Paris of Siberia, and for good reason.
Oh, that sounds fancy. Okay, I'm picturing something grand. What are we looking at here?
Well, this house is huge. It's 2,368 square feet on over half an acre of land. And get this, it's located near Lake Baikal, one of the most beautiful lakes in the world.
Lake Baikal. I've seen pictures. That water is crystal clear.
Okay.
Okay, I'm sold on the location. What about the house itself?
The interior is described as top tier, which I'm guessing means modern and luxurious. High-end finishes, maybe even some custom features.
Okay, now we're talking. A luxurious home on a beautiful lake in Siberia. How much is this dream property?
All this for a cool $134,500.
No way! For that size, that location, and that level of luxury, $134,500 is a steal.
I know, right? It makes you wonder what you could get in Russia for, say, $500,000.
Yeah.
Maybe a castle.
Maybe. Or a private island.
Oh.
Okay, what's the next property on our list?
All right, for something completely different, we have a house in Krasnodar Krai.
Krasnodar Krai. Refresh my memory on that one.
It's a region in southern Russia known for its warmer climate.
Oh, right. Sunnier skies and milder weather. I can see the appeal. What kind of house are we looking at here?
It's a bit smaller at 1,292 square feet on an average-sized plot of land for Russia.
So not quite as sprawling as the Siberian estate. What about the style?
The style is very modern and sleek. It almost has a Western vibe to it, if that makes sense.
Okay, so a more contemporary minimalist aesthetic.
Yeah, exactly. Think clean lines, open spaces, lots of natural light.
Sounds lovely. And what's the asking price for this modern oasis?
It's listed for $142,300.
Still incredibly affordable. It's fascinating to see these two very different properties in the same price range.
Isn't it? It just shows the variety you can find in the Russian real estate market. Do you have a preference between the two? The spacious lake house in Siberia or the modern home in a warmer climate?
Tough choice. It really depends on your lifestyle, I guess. Are you more drawn to the peace and quiet of nature or the convenience and vibrancy of a more temperate region?
It's a good question. I think I'm leaning towards the lake house, but maybe that's just the wanderlust talking. Speaking of unique properties, you ready for this? We're about to see a property listed for under $1 million near Moscow.
Hold on, under $1 million near Moscow. Now that's something I didn't expect.
Me neither. It's amazing what you can find when you start digging deeper. But before we get to that, let me ask you, what do you think $1 million gets you in Russia's capital?
That's a good question. I'm guessing it's not quite the sprawling estate you might imagine. Location probably dictates size, even at that price point.
You're spot on. Let's take a look and see what we find.
Welcome back. We've seen some incredible properties already, but that part in the YouTube video about foreigners buying property in Russia really got me thinking.
Yeah, me too. It mentioned things like using a power of attorney to buy remotely. It's wild.
It is. Imagine buying a house in Russia without even setting foot there.
Right. It sounds almost too good to be true. Like, are there hidden hoops to jump through?
Well, there are always legal things to think about, especially with international real estate.
That's why we're going to have that whole episode later with the lawyer, right? To break it all down.
Absolutely. Important stuff for anyone seriously considering buying.
Okay, but back to our virtual house hunting for now. We've seen the super cheap rural houses and even some fancier ones near cities.
Right, but now we're going to a totally different part of the Russian market, dachas.
Dachas. Okay, gotta be honest. I don't know what those are.
Think of it like a country house or cottage. Russians traditionally use them for weekend trips or summer vacations.
Oh, like a vacation home then.
Exactly. They often have big gardens for growing veggies, maybe some fruit trees. You find them all over Russia, from outside big cities to tiny villages.
Sounds peaceful. Little escape to the countryside.
But there's more to it than that. Dachas have this special meaning in Russian culture.
Like what? What makes them different from just a regular vacation home?
They represent this connection to nature, a break from city life, and often it's where families and friends get together.
So it's not just a place, it's a whole lifestyle.
Yeah, exactly. It's about self-sufficiency, being close to the land, living at a slower pace. Very Russian, you could say.
You can see why they're so popular then.
And guess what? They can be pretty affordable, especially compared to the city apartments we saw.
Oh, that's good news. Especially for anyone on a tighter budget.
You could get a cozy dacha for way less than a Moscow apartment and enjoy that country life.
Okay, now I'm really interested. Paint me a picture. What does a typical dacha look like?
Imagine a wooden cottage tucked away among birch trees with a traditional Russian banya, a sauna, and maybe a little stream running through the property.
Wow, that sounds like something out of a storybook. So peaceful.
That's the classic dacha image.
Okay, I'm relaxed just thinking about it. But dachas are more rural, right? What about people who want that city life?
Right, we haven't talked much about apartments yet. And where better to start than Moscow?
The heart of Russia. But we already saw how expensive it can be there.
True. But Moscow apartments have this unique mix of history, culture, modern living, all in one.
What kind of apartments are we talking about? Give me the details.
Imagine living in a building from before the revolution. High ceilings, fancy decorations, maybe even a secret room or two.
Whoa, a secret room. Now that's cool.
These apartments have stories to tell, makes them even more valuable.
Like living in a museum almost.
Right. Picture having dinner in a room where famous artists or writers once hung out.
That's an experience you can't just buy anywhere.
Of course, those historic places in the best spots that cost a lot.
Yeah, figured as much. What about for regular folks who aren't millionaires? Any options in Moscow?
Well, the closer you get to the center, the pricier it gets. But if you go further out, there are more affordable apartments.
So you can still have that city life without spending a fortune.
Exactly. And don't forget, beyond Moscow, there are other great Russian cities, each with their own feel.
Like where? Give me some examples.
Well, there's St. Petersburg. It's got those beautiful canals and palaces, very European.
Yeah, I've heard of it. The Venice of the North or something.
That's the one. And then there's Kazan. It's on the Volga River, mixes Russian and Tatar cultures. Totally unique vibe.
So lots of options then, even just sticking to city apartments.
The YouTube video showed some really cool ones too. Modern lofts, classic apartments with amazing views.
Makes you realize there's so much more to Russian real estate than we usually hear about.
Before we wrap up this part, there's one more thing to mention. Investing in Russian real estate.
Oh, right. We've been focused on living there, but there's the money side too.
And there are definitely chances for smart investors in this market.
Like what? What should people be looking at?
One area is commercial real estate, especially in those growing cities we talked about.
Makes sense. As businesses boom, they need more space.
Exactly. Office spaces, shops, even warehouses. All in demand.
So as Russia's economy keeps developing, those properties become more valuable, plus you get rental income.
Another thing is tourism. It's really taking off in Russia.
Yeah, it's a huge country with so much to see. History, nature, everything.
Right. So that means opportunities for investing in tourist-related places like hotels, guest houses, even those vacation rentals we talked about.
Imagine owning a little cabin by Lake Baikal, catering to adventurers.
Or a charming guest house in St. Petersburg for people visiting from all over.
So many possibilities. But like with any investment, gotta do your research first, right?
Absolutely. Can't stress that enough. And we'll have a whole episode later focusing on the investment side with a real estate pro.
Yeah, looking forward to that. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. What are your big takeaways from all this Russian real estate?
Well, it's been eye-opening for sure. We saw those super cheap rural places, the charm of the dachas, the history in those Moscow apartments, and then the investment potential too.
Totally changed my view of Russia, I'll admit that. There's way more diversity than I realized.
And that's the beauty of these deep dives, right? We go beyond the headlines, really explore the details, and discover hidden gems.
Absolutely. And speaking of hidden gems, there's one last category of properties we haven't talked about yet.
Yeah.
Unique and unusual homes.
Oh yeah, get ready for some architectural surprises.
Welcome back to the show. We've seen it all, those cheap houses by the river, those $1 million Moscow places, but there's one last stop on our Russian real estate tour.
We started with properties that surprised us with how affordable they were, but now, get this, we're going to the land of the unexpected. Unique and unusual homes, stuff that shows just how creative Russian homeowners can be.
Okay, now you've got me hooked. Give me some examples. What kind of unusual are we talking here?
All right, picture this. A house shaped like a giant teapot. Spout, lid, the whole thing.
A teapot house, you're kidding,
Nope,
okay?
totally serious. Sounds crazy, but it's real. And it's not just about weird shapes either. Some houses take those traditional Russian designs and make them modern. Like imagine a log cabin, but with huge windows overlooking a mountain.
Oh, wow, yeah. Like a mix of that classic dacha charm and modern style, all in one.
Exactly. And some people get really creative with the materials. There's a house built entirely out of old shipping containers.
Wow, that's thinking outside the box. It seems like in Russia, people aren't afraid to try new things, push the boundaries of what a house can be.
Definitely. These homes show a different side of Russia, one that's all about creativity, doing your own thing, breaking away from the norm.
It's inspiring to see people putting so much of themselves into their homes. Makes you realize there's a whole world out there beyond the typical houses you see listed.
So true. These unique places add something special to our whole Russian real estate adventure. They remind us that a home is more than just walls and a roof. It's a reflection of the people who live there.
Yeah, their dreams, their connection to the place, it all comes through. Thinking back on everything we've seen, it's amazing the variety and how affordable things are in some areas. Russia's is definitely not what I expected.
It's been an eye-opener, right? We've seen properties for all kinds of lifestyles and budgets, from the simple dachas to the fancy Moscow mansions. And along the way, we learned about Russian culture, their traditions, how their real estate market works. It's fascinating stuff.
And we can't forget that legal side of things. Can foreigners actually buy property in Russia? For anyone thinking of taking the plunge, we'll have that expert lawyer on the next episode to explain it all. Don't miss it.
Big questions need answering. But for now, as we wrap up our deep dive, think about what surprised you most, what made you curious, what inspired you.
Was there a property that really stood out to you?
Did you discover a part of Russia you never even thought about before?
Maybe you're even dreaming of your own teapot house in the Russian countryside now.
Whatever it is, we hope this deep dive opened your mind a little, showed you a different side of a country that people often misunderstand.
Thanks for joining us on this journey through Russian real estate. Until next time.